Going on, Locks Mob, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Locks DFS NHL Breakdown. I am your host, Narang, and we will be breaking down this Thursday main slate for NHL. We got an awesome slate on tap. It's an 11-game slate, way better than the 2-game slate we had yesterday. So super excited to get into this. Real quick, if you want to follow me on Twitter, right here, @ReallyAddy, go ahead and give me a follow. If you want to talk about hockey, basketball, football, anything really, that's the spot for it. But yeah, with that being said, let's jump right into this slate. So it's a big slate. So the way I'm going to do this breakdown is just sort of pinpoint a couple of my favorite point per dollar players at each position, center, wing, defense, and then a quick breakdown of where I'm at on goalie. And then we'll go from there. We'll keep it short, keep it sweet, do it how we usually do it. So starting at center, it's an interesting position. It's really, really deep, but my favorite sort of value range is in this 5.5 to 6K range of center. And I'll talk about a couple guys in this range. First is Sebastian Aho sitting at 5.7K. This is a guy who is the highest or one of the highest rate shooters on a Carolina team, which is surrounded by a ton of guys who love to shoot the puck. With Jordan Staal injured, he's no longer playing that winger position with Jordan Staal and Toivo on the other wing. Now he's centering Jordan Martinook and Toivo. And so he's kind of more the primary shooter of that line. I like that a lot. And he's a guy who at 5.7K, there's not many guys who'll give you a 22-minute upside with just their time on ice. Like a lot of guys around here will give you like 18 minutes or maybe max 20 minutes, but this guy really does give you a ceiling of like 24 minutes, which is elite from any forward, and getting that at 5.7K I think is awesome value. Similarly, sort of in a similar fashion actually, Joe Pavelski at 5.8K. He's a guy who's kind of going to cap out at 20 minutes, like we sort of talked about, but he does give you dynamic offensive upside on a Sharks team that should be involved in a really high-scoring game versus Winnipeg. That game opened at a 6.5 team total. Still at 6.5. 38% of the bets on San Jose, yet they've moved from -123 to -135. That is solid line movement, solid amount of sharp money coming in on them. So I'm definitely interested in being pretty heavy on some Sharks tonight. Obviously, I love their defenseman, but I'll get into that. I like Pavelski on this line with Evander Kane just because Evander Kane remains underpriced across the board too. So it's a really comfortable stack. It's got a very high floor because both those guys are high-rate shooters. Both of them block a couple shots. Pavelski gets time in all three situations, as in like 5-on-5 power play and on the kill. So just a solid play all around. And getting him, again, they're projected for a 3.5 team total. I like both those lines for San Jose. I should mention though, they actually both are fairly underpriced because you got guys like obviously Evander Kane at 5.4, but also Tomas Hertl on the other line. On that first line, he's at 5.4. Those are two steal of prices, so really like that. But we'll get into winger. And then the third guy I wanted to talk about after Pavelski and Aho is Evgeny Malkin at 6K. It's just a drastic underprice. I could go to his game logs, and you see that he sort of lives up in the high 7.1 range, 6.7. I think 6K might be a season low for him. I don't recall seeing him at 6K. And it's a good matchup. I mean, he's going up against a Minnesota team that's missing Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba's more of an offensive defenseman, but it's still a blow to their defensive units and as far as their depth goes. The Penguins are always a better team on home ice, and Minnesota's not a team that's prone to they're not a team that's prone to giving up a bunch of goals, but they're not against giving up goals either. They're not some Nashville sort of shutdown team that can really just blank a team. Minnesota gives up a fair amount of shots, fair amount of offensive chances, and I think there's something Pittsburgh can take advantage of. Obviously, we've got Evgeny Malkin skating on that second line. Let me go ahead and pull it up. Skating on that second line with Phil Kessel. So I really like the second line. And I like Pittsburgh at full strength. There is some line movement coming back on Minnesota, I should say. It is what it is. I mean, fairly strong line movement on 50% of the bets. But I feel pretty strongly about Pittsburgh in this matchup, especially with Matt Dumba being out for Minnesota. All right. With that being said, let's move on to winger. So, winger, another super deep position, but for me, it kind of starts with these Vegas guys. I'm really interested in this first line of Vegas and Jonathan Marchessault. Anytime Jonathan Marchessault is 6.4K, I believe he's a 7K player, like much of last year. Playing on that first team power play, on that skating on that first line, the highest rate shooter on a Vegas team that ranks third in the league in Corsi for percentage versus an Islanders team that is I think on their like fourth game on a road trip. So I like that. It seems like Corsica's always down when I'm trying to record, but it's crazy how that works. But Jonathan Marchessault, probably my favorite point per dollar winger as of right now. Like I said, a dominant Corsi 4 team, even more dominant at home. This is a line that's way more underpriced than they were last year, so very interested there. Coming down a little bit farther, I'm really interested in like this 6K range of players, which is pretty rare for an 11-game slate. There's not too much value that I'm obsessed with, but I really do like. I think you can get a ton of good value in this mid-price. Tarasenko, 5.9K. Vancouver's a team that's improved defensively than their numbers will show. A lot of those poor defensive numbers came without Alexander Edler, without Tanev, without Ben Hutton. They were banged up pretty badly defensively. But now they're pretty healthy, and they're not as bad defensively, but they're still a team that gives up a fair amount of chances. And we got St. Louis with Vladimir Tarasenko at 5.9K. I think getting a rate shooter like him, I wish I could show you on Corsica, but he shoots the puck at an incredible rate, and I feel like getting him at 5.9K is an absolute steal. And then coming down a little bit farther, Evander Kane. I already talked about Joe Pavelski, but getting Evander Kane at 5.4K. For those of y'all who are new to this video, the theme of NHL DFS for me is taking shooters. Guys who shoot the puck are in the most fantasy-friendly position. Just because in hockey, that's how you rack up assists, that's how you rack up goals on those little gritty rebound goals, all that kind of stuff. It all counts for fantasy points. That's how you accumulate them. So guys who shoot the puck, Evander Kane, Jonathan Marchessault, and Vladimir Tarasenko. I really like those three plays in that mid range. And then moving on to defense, the big news in defense for me is that Colin Miller for Vegas is out. Or at least he wasn't skating in morning skate. It's presumed that he'll sit. And if he sits, that's a big bump to Shea Theodore and Nate Schmidt. If we look at Vegas right now, I guess it has been updated. Shea Theodore just as of like 5 minutes ago is on the second power play unit, but now they've removed Colin Miller, so I guess it's official he will sit. So I love Shea Theodore as a pair with Jonathan Marchessault. He's a guy who's got a really good shot. Is one of the higher rate shooters for defensemen. Very offensive friendly. So he used to be on Anaheim prior to Vegas. I live by a high school, and I think it's like lunchtime or something for these kids, or at least they're getting out of school, so it's crazy. But so pardon that noise. But Shea Theodore, high rate shooter, getting him at 4.4K now with that power play bump, I like that a lot. And Nate Schmidt, honestly, Nate Schmidt has shown an offensive game. The past couple years with Vegas, he's a guy who's skating like 25 minutes a game. It's only going to go up a little bit with Colin Miller out. So I really like both of them. Nate Schmidt still on that power play 2 role, but he will be skating probably a couple more minutes and still part of the first defensive pairing. So pairs real well with Marchessault and any other Vegas players that you may like. As far as high price options, 'cause I know I've talked a lot about some fairly lower price options. I like Chris Letang. We talk about Minnesota, how they allow more shots to the blue line. That's sort of in their defensive scheme. They funnel shots to defensemen. So Chris Letang, he's sort of the only real offensive weapon for this Pittsburgh team. Pairs really well with that Evgeny Malkin 6K play that I talked about. And I mean, anytime a defenseman going against Minnesota, you can up his projected shot floor. And that's all you want in NHL DFS. You want a safe shot floor because, again, that's how you generate fantasy points. Finally, John Klingberg's probably going to be back in the lineup at 6.3K. A guy I didn't mention at center was Tyler Seguin at the top end. He's probably my favorite high-priced option. Feels like a get-right game for these guys at home versus Chicago. team that is second in the league in expected goals against on the road, per 60, I should say, expected goals against per 60. So I do like the idea of getting some action for Dallas. It could be a Sagan Klingberg stack for real. That's made a lot of people a lot of money the past like 3-4 years. And then finally, the San Jose guys will always be in play. As I talked about, they pair really well with Kane, Pavelski. There is sharp line movement towards them, sitting at a 3-5 team total, which is one of the highest on the slates. So a big fan of both those guys. As always, if you can afford them, they're like the 2 highest floor guys in DFS. So awesome plays. Goalie, only going to talk about it for like 30 seconds. But just go with whoever you have a bunch of players with. Go with that goalie. Go with the goalie for your stack. We've seen Ben Bishop put up really big games at home versus teams. Now he's got a Chicago team that I expect Dallas to do fairly well against. Chicago's projected for 2.5 goals. I think that might be a slate low. So like that option. That's up with Detroit. So Carolina, whoever starts in net for Carolina. I'm not sure if that's confirmed yet. Could be. Yeah, it looks like it's unconfirmed. Could be Peter Mrazek. So he's in play as well. I think he's probably a fairly good price point for him at 7.5K. So yeah, look to a couple options. See who you got skaters of. Take their goalie. Cross your fingers. Hope and pray. But yeah, with that being said, like, comment, and subscribe if you did enjoy this video. As always, we're running that same giveaway. Go ahead, leave a comment after you've liked, and obviously I'm assuming you're subscribed. Leave a comment, your favorite NHL play. And yeah, and so like we go through at the end of every week. There's just screaming outside my window. It is crazy. I can't even think. But yeah, so we go through at the end of every week, and we pick a winner for a free NHL, NBA, or NFL season pass. So go ahead, leave a comment, see if you win. But yeah, thank you guys for checking out this video. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace.